The pilgrims have gathered, and the knight is chosen to speak first. He begins a tale of blood and glory, where Duke Theseus crushes the tyrant of Thebes, only to capture two royal cousins in the rubble. Now locked in a tower, their brotherhood will shatter when they both fall in love with a woman they can see, but cannot touch. As old stories tell us, there was once a duke named Theseus. He was the lord and governor of Athens, and in his time, he was such a conqueror that there was no one greater under the sun. He had won many rich countries. With his wisdom and his chivalry, he conquered the realm of the Amazons, which was once called Scythia. He wedded their queen, Hippolyta, and brought her home to his country with much glory and great solemnity. He also brought along her young sister, Emily. So, with victory and melody, I will let this worthy duke ride toward Athens with all his army beside him. If it weren't too long to hear, I would have told you fully how the realm of the Amazons was won by Theseus and his knights. I would tell you of the great battle between the Athenians and the Amazons, and how Hippolyta, the fair, hardy queen, was besieged. I would tell you of the feast at her wedding and the storm at her homecoming. But I must forbear from all these things right now. I have, God knows, a large field to plow, and the oxen in my plow are weak. The rest of my tale is long enough. I will not hinder anyone else in this company. Let every fellow tell his tale. So let's see who shall win the supper. Where I left off I will begin again. This duke I told you about was almost back at the town. He was riding high, full of wealth and pride, but then he glanced to the side. He realized that a group of ladies was kneeling right there on the highway. They were arranged 2 by 2, all dressed in black clothes. They were making such a cry and such woe that there is no creature living in this world who has heard such lamenting. And they would not stop this crying until they seized the reins of his bridle. "What folk are you, that at my homecoming disturb my feast with such crying?" said Theseus. "Do you have such great envy of my honor that you complain and cry like this? Or who has wronged you or offended you? Tell me if it may be amended, and why you are clothed all in black." The oldest lady of the group began to speak, but first she swooned with a face so deadly that it was a pity to see or hear. She said, "Lord, to whom fortune has given victory, and to live as a conqueror, we do not grieve at your glory and your honor. But we beseech you for mercy and help. Have mercy on our woe and our distress. Let some drop of pity fall upon us wretched women, through your gentleness. For certainly, Lord, there is not one of us who has not been a duchess or a queen. Now we are captives, as you can see. Thank fortune and her false wheel, which ensures that no prosperous estate continues forever. And certainly, Lord, to wait for your presence, we have been waiting here in the temple of the goddess Clemence for this entire fortnight. Now help us, Lord, since it lies in your power. I, a wretched creature who weeps and wails like this, was formerly the wife to King Capaneus. He died at Thebes, cursed be that day. And all of us who are in this group, making all this lamentation, lost all our husbands at that town while the siege lay there. And yet old Creon, alas, who is now lord of the city of Thebes, is filled with anger and wickedness. Out of spite and tyranny, to insult the dead bodies of all our lords who have been slain, he piled all the bodies in a heap. He will not suffer them to be buried or burned, by no assent. But he makes the dogs eat them just to spite us." And with that word, without any more delay, they fell face down and cried piteously, "Have some mercy on us wretched women, and let our sorrow sink into your heart." This gentle duke jumped down from his horse. His heart felt like it was going to break when he saw them so pitiful and so humbled, these women who were once of such great estate. He took them all up in his arms and comforted them with good intent. He swore an oath right there, as he was a true knight, that he would do as far as his power went to wreak vengeance upon the tyrant Creon. He swore that all the people of Greece should speak of how Creon was served by Theseus, as one who had fully deserved his death. Right then, without any more delay, he displayed his banner and rode forth toward Thebes with all his host beside him. He would not go nearer to Athens, nor take his ease for fully half a day, but he lay onward on his way that night. He sent Hippolyta the queen and Emily, her lovely young sister, to the town of Athens to dwell. And forth he rode, there is no more to tell. The red statue of Mars, with spear and shield, shone so brightly in his large white banner that all the fields glittered up and down. And by his banner was borne his pennon of gold, full rich, in which was stamped the Minotaur which he slew in Crete. Thus rode this duke, thus rode this conqueror, and in his host was the flower of chivalry, until he came to Thebes and alighted fair in a field where he intended to fight. To speak shortly of this thing, he fought with Creon, who was king of Thebes, and slew him manly as a knight in plain battle. He put Creon's folk to flight. Then by assault he won the city and tore down both wall and beam and rafter. And to the ladies he restored again the bodies of their husbands that were slain, to do the funeral rites, as was the custom then. But it would be all too long to describe the great clamor, and the lamenting that the ladies made at the burning of the bodies. Briefly, my intent is to tell the story. When this worthy duke, this Theseus, had slain Creon and won Thebes, he took his rest all night in the field. He did with all the country as he pleased. The pillagers did their business and their work after the battle and defeat, ransacking the heap of dead bodies to strip them of armor and clothes. And so it befell that in the heap they found, pierced through with many a grievous bloody wound, 2 young knights lying side by side. They were both in the same armor, wrought very richly. Of these 2, one was called Arcite, and the other was called Palamon. They were not fully alive, nor fully dead, but by their coat armor and their gear the heralds knew them well, specifically as those who were of the royal blood of Thebes and born of 2 sisters. Out of the heap the pillagers tore them, and carried them softly to the tent of Theseus. And he full soon sent them to Athens to dwell in prison perpetually. He would take no ransom. And when this worthy duke had done this, he took his host and rode home immediately, crowned with laurel as a conqueror. And there he lived in joy and in honor for the rest of his life. What need are more words? And in a tower, in anguish and in woe, dwelled this Palamon and also Arcite for evermore. No gold could set them free. Thus passed year by year and day by day. Until it fell once on a morning in May that Emily, who was fairer to look at than the lily on its green stalk, and fresher than the May with new flowers, for her hue strove with the rose color, and I know not which was the finer of the 2, was arisen before it was day, as she was accustomed to do. She was all ready and dressed, for May will have no laziness at night. The season pricks every gentle heart and makes it start out of sleep, saying, "Arise and do your observance." This made Emily remember to do honor to May and to rise. She was clothed freshly. Her yellow hair was braided in a tress down her back, a full yard long, I guess. And in the garden at sunrise she walked up and down wherever she pleased. She gathered flowers, partly white and red, to make a subtle garland for her head. And she sang like a heavenly angel. The great tower, which was so thick and strong, and was the chief dungeon of the castle where these knights were in prison, of which I told you and shall tell, was adjoining right against the garden wall where this Emily was playing. Bright was the sun and clear that morning, and Palamon, this woeful prisoner, was risen as was his custom. By leave of his jailer he roamed in a chamber high up, from which he saw all the noble city, and also the garden, full of green branches, where this fresh, lovely Emilia was in her walk, roaming up and down. This sorrowful prisoner, this Palamon, went in his chamber roaming to and fro, and complaining to himself of his woe. Alas, he said often, that I was born. And so it befell, by adventure or chance, that through a window thick with many a bar of massive iron, square as any beam, he cast his eyes upon Emilia. And immediately he started back and cried, ah, as if he had been stung right in the heart. And with that cry, Arcite started up immediately and said, Cousin mine, what ails you that you are so pale and deathly to see? Why did you cry out? Who has done you offense? For God's love, take our imprisonment in patience, for it cannot be otherwise. Fortune has given us this adversity. Some wicked aspect or disposition of Saturn by some constellation has given us this, although we had sworn against it. So stood the heavens when we were born. We must endure it. This is the short and plain truth. This Palamon answered and said again, Cousin, truly, of this opinion you have a vain imagination. This prison did not cause me to cry out, but I was hurt right now through my eye into my heart. That will be my destruction. The fairness of the lady that I see yonder in the garden, roaming to and fro, is the cause of all my crying and my woe. I do not know whether she is a woman or a goddess, but it is Venus truly, as I guess. And with that he fell down on his knees and said, Venus, if it be your will to transfigure yourself in this garden before me, a sorrowful, wretched creature, help us to escape out of this prison. And if it so be that our destiny is shaped by eternal word to die in prison, have some compassion on our lineage, that is brought so low by tyranny. And with that word, Arcite began to look forth toward where this lady roamed to and fro. And with that sight her beauty hurt him so much that if Palamon was wounded sore, Arcite is hurt as much as he, or more. And with a sigh he said piteously, The fresh beauty of her who roams yonder in the place slays me suddenly. And unless I have her mercy and her grace that I may see her at the very least, I am nothing but dead. There is no more to say. This Palamon, when he heard these words, looked angrily and answered, Do you say this in earnest or in play? Nay, said Arcite, in earnest by my faith. God help me so, I have no humor for jesting. This Palamon began to knit his two brows. It would be, said he, no great honor to you to be false, nor to be a traitor to me. I am your cousin and your brother sworn full deep, each of us to the other. That never, even if we die in pain, until death shall part us two, neither of us shall hinder the other in love, nor in any other case, my dear brother. But that you should truly further me in every case, as I should further you. This was your oath and mine also certain. I know it well, you dare not deny it. Thus you are of my counsel without a doubt, and now you would falsely go about loving my lady, whom I love and serve and ever shall until my heart dies. Now certainly, false Arcite, you shall not do so. I loved her first and told you my woe, as to my counsel and my sworn brother to further me, as I have told before. For which you are bound as a knight to help me, if it lies in your power. Or else you are false, I dare well say. This Arcite spoke back fully proudly. You shall, said he, be false sooner than I, and you are false, I tell you utterly. For I loved her as a lover first before you. What will you say? Even now, you do not know whether she is a woman or a goddess. Yours is an affection of holiness, and mine is love, as to a creature. For which I told you my adventure, as to my cousin and my sworn brother. I suppose that you did love her before. Do you not know well the old clerk's saying that, who shall give a lover any law? Love is a greater law, by my head, than may be given to any earthly man. Therefore positive law and such decrees are broken always for love in each degree. A man must strictly love despite his head. He may not flee it though he should be dead, whether she be maid or widow or else wife. And also, it is not likely that all your life you will stand in her grace, no more than I, for well you know yourself truly, that you and I are condemned to prison perpetually. No ransom gains us anything. We strive as the hounds did for the bone. They fought all day, and yet their part was none. There came a kite while they were so angry, and bore away the bone betwixt them both. And therefore, at the king's court, my brother, it's each man for himself, there is no other way. Love if you please, for I love and always shall, and truly, dear brother, this is all. Here in this prison we must endure, and each of us take his chance. Great was the strife and long between these two, if I had leisure to say it. But to the effect, it happened on a day, to tell it to you as shortly as I may, a worthy duke named Pirithous, who was a fellow to the Duke Theseus since the day they were little children, had come to Athens to visit his fellow. He came to play as he was wont to do, for in this world he loved no man so much, and Theseus loved him as tenderly back. So well they loved, as old books say, that when one was dead, truly to say, his fellow went and sought him down in hell, but I don't wish to write of that story. Duke Pirithous loved Arcite well, and had known him at Thebes year by year. And finally, at the request and prayer of Pirithous, without ransom, Duke Theseus let him out of prison freely to go wherever he pleased. But in such a manner as I shall tell you, this was the promise plainly agreed between Theseus and Arcite, that if it were so that Arcite were ever found in his life, by day or night, for one moment in any country of this Theseus, and he were caught, it was agreed that with a sword he should lose his head. There was no other remedy or counsel, so he took his leave and sped homeward. Let him beware, his neck lies in pledge, how great a sorrow Arcite suffers now. He feels death smite through his heart, he weeps, wails, cries piteously, he waits secretly to slay himself. He said, alas, the day that I was born, now is my prison worse than before. Now it is fixed for me eternally to dwell not in purgatory, but right in hell. Alas, that ever I knew Pirithous, for else I had dwelt with Theseus, fettered in his prison evermore. Then I had been in bliss and not in woe. Only the sight of her, whom I serve, though I may never deserve her grace, would have sufficed right enough for me. O dear cousin Palamon, said he, yours is the victory of this adventure. You endure fully blissfully in prison. Nay, certainly, in paradise. Well has fortune turned the dice for you. You have the sight of her and I the absence. Thus we may all say, and especially I, who thought and had a great opinion that if I might escape from prison, then I would be in joy and perfect health. Where now I am exiled from my well-being, since I may not see you, Emily, I am nothing but dead, there is no remedy. Upon the other side, Palamon, when he knew Arcite was gone, made such sorrow that the great tower resounded with his yelling and clamor. The very fetters on his great shins were wet with his bitter salt tears. Alas, said he, Arcite, cousin mine, of all our strife God knows the fruit is yours. You walk now in Thebes at large, and of my woe you take little heed. You may, since you have wisdom and courage, assemble all the folk of our kindred and make a war so sharp on this country, that by some adventure or some treaty you may have her as your lady and wife, for whom I must needs lose my life. For by way of possibility, since you are at large, free of prison, and are a lord, great is your advantage, more than is mine, who dies here in a cage. Therewith the fire of jealousy started up within his breast, and seized him by the heart so madly that he looked like the box tree, or the ashes dead and cold. Then he said, O cruel goddess, that governs this world with the binding of your eternal word. Now will I pause a little concerning Palamon and let him dwell still in his prison, and I will tell you forth of Arcite. The summer passes, and the long nights increase doublewise the strong pains of both the lover and the prisoner. You lovers, I ask you now this question, who lies the worse, Arcite or Palamon? The one may see his lady day by day, but he must dwell in prison always. The other may ride or go where he pleases, but see his lady shall he never more. Now judge as you please, you that can, for I will tell you forth as I began. Ponder this question well, my masters, who suffers the greater pain? The man in chains who sees his love but cannot reach her, or the free man who wanders the world but is banished from her sight forever? For the wheel of fortune turns swiftly, and the answer lies ahead. Join us for the next part of this tale, where we shall see how Arcite withers in his bitter exile, and what strange and desperate destiny awaits Palamon in his tower. The battle for love has only just begun.